Today we're going to make some easy buttermilk biscuits with sausage gravy. This is one of those classic dishes. I always think of it like a Sunday morning dish, something you're going to put together, really enjoy to get the day started. And it is surprisingly easy to make, no fancy equipment needed. Now we're going to get our dry components of the biscuits ready first, and we're starting with 2 cups of all-purpose flour. To this I'm adding 1 tablespoon of sugar, just regular table sugar. 1 tablespoon of baking powder. 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper. 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. And for just a tiny little bit of a kick, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne pepper. It's really not going to bring much heat. It's just sort of that background note. Let's mix these together. All right, let's get our wet ingredients ready. I have a cup of buttermilk here, and to this I'm going to add 1/2 cup of melted unsalted butter. Just want to mix this together. And let's get this into our dry ingredients. And we're just going to mix this all together. If at the end your ingredients are a little too dry, you can add a little bit of buttermilk. And if they're too wet, you can add a little bit of flour. It's starting to look really good here. No dry spots in our dough. All right, time to form this into our biscuits. So right now your oven should be preheated to 425 degrees. Now I have a baking sheet here with some parchment paper in it, and I'm using a 1/2 cup scoop here to get the right amount of our dough out here. Now we've got the general round shape, but they're a little bit puffy, so we're going to flatten them out like biscuits. So this recipe gives us about 5 biscuits. They're pretty big. You could use a smaller measurement to make smaller biscuits. But I like big biscuits. Can that be misconstrued? I hope not. All right, these are going to go into my 425 degree oven for anywhere from 12 to 15 minutes. That's my oven. Your oven could be different. Really, it's when they get nice and puffy, they're nice golden brown. And one way to help with the browning is to brush a little bit of, say, 1/2 and 1/2 or heavy cream or milk on the top. I'm going to use some 1/2 and 1/2. Just a light little brushing. Some people like to use an egg wash. That's fine. There's some nice fats in this 1/2 and 1/2, so that helps with the browning. All right, we're going to get these in the oven. I'll bring you back when they're done, and then we're going to move on to making our gravy. Here are our biscuits. Now, these took 17 minutes in my oven this time, and one way you can tell besides just the look is using an instant read thermometer. I use my Thermapen 1 from ThermoWorks. 205 degrees is about done for biscuits like these. Now, if you want to move them a little quicker, you can always do it at 450, but I like 425. Now, these are going to sit here, and we're going to go over to the stove, and we're going to make our gravy. So I have my cast iron skillet on the stove here, and I'm going to turn it to medium heat. And I'm going to add 1 pound of seasoned sausage. This is like a breakfast sausage. I think this one has a lot of sage in it. And we're going to just start breaking this up and cooking it down. We want to brown this nicely. You don't have to use cast iron, just a nice skillet, but I like cast iron, especially for making gravy for biscuits and gravy. There's just something that feels cool about it. And just keep browning it and breaking it down. We really want it cooked through as a pork breakfast sausage before we add our other ingredients, our cream, or 1/2 and 1/2, flour. You also want smaller chunks in the gravy, not big chunks. Break them down as small as you want or make them as big as you want. I like mine about medium size. And now I'm going to add 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. And we're going to stir this around, kind of absorb all the fat that's been released from this sausage. Also make a mess if you can, just splattering flour everywhere like I am. Probably want your heat on about medium-low right now, especially if you're in cast iron. All right, I'm going to add 2 cups of heavy cream. and 1 cup of half and half. And we're going to stir because we want to thicken everything. And really this is kind of a personal preferencing on how thick you like your gravy. Some people like it thinner, some people like it thicker. I'm kind of in between. At this time I also want to add a tablespoon of ground black pepper. Love a peppery gravy, and half a teaspoon of kosher salt. There's already a good amount of seasoning in that sausage. But we've added a lot of liquid here, so we want to make sure we're not under-seasoned. And now we're just going to stir and let this thicken. And you can see we're starting to thicken nicely here, so I'm turning my heat down to low, especially in cast iron because that retains heat so well. Just want to get a little taste here for flavor. That's perfect. All right, I am turning my stove off here. The cast iron will keep this warm. And let's get some on one of our biscuits. I have one of my biscuits right here. And let's top this with some of our gravy. This is what they call a stick to your ribs meal. And I'm ready to dive in. Again, this reminds me, like I said, of that Sunday morning breakfast. Cheers. That is so good. I don't know if you can see it, how that biscuit is nice and flaky. I mean, it's not flaky because we folded the butter in a method that a lot of people do when making biscuits. When you add that melted butter to the cold buttermilk, I don't know if you saw it formed those little granules in there as it cooled. That's a similar method to if you just add the butter to the flour and break it down with your fingers. It gets throughout there. It's just fantastic. This was really less than an hour to make, almost less than half an hour. But if you give yourself that hour, you're going to end up with some amazing food. Like I said, for a Sunday or any day, I just love biscuits and gravy.